The purchase and sale agreement. Okay, agents, you will notice we are now logged in to Forms Pro through FMLS. Once you're in your Forms Pro home screen, you will see something similar with your past clients. What we're going to do today is go through the purchase and sales contract. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go to Quick Print. If you ever need to just print out a contract quickly without setting it up through a client, here's your client list. You can just go to Quick Start, Quick Print. Now once I'm in Quick Print, I'm going to RE Forms. We're going to go to Sale Documents. And we're going to go to RE100, the purchase for a residential contract. Continue. Alright, so we always start with the offer date. That is the day you're writing the contract. So today is July 4th, 2014. Goes without saying, always make sure your year is correct. It's easy to put the wrong year in there and then you have an entirely voided out contract. Alright, so it's going to be made again, July 4th, 2014, between the seller and buyer. In this instance, it's the buyer and seller. So let's say our buyer's name is Joe Buyer, and our seller's name is Sally Seller. Creative, huh? Alright. So this is going to be for a property. We're going to use a roundabout number, and again, I'm just filling these in so you can see how we fill these in under a purchase and sale agreement. Property is located in, let's say, Fulton County, and it's going to be known as 123 Maple Street. Okay. Or typically Lot 100 of the 5th District in the 3rd section, again, of Fulton County. Lot number. Remember, land lot and lot are two different numbers. You can find these usually in the tax records of the property. So this is Lot 5, Block A of the 3rd phase of Wilmington Farms. They might have typed today, that would be helpful. Okay. And it's in page 232 of the 8th book, again, of Fulton County. Obviously, all your counties should match up. Your tax ID is whatever tax ID number it is. Make sure this is the correct tax ID number when you put it in there. Alright, now we're going to scroll down. Purchase price. Now, when you're doing the purchase price and you're explaining it to someone buying, I usually go through, as most of you know, and do the purchase price section last. For today's lesson, because we're just explaining how to fill out the purchase and sale agreement, we'll go ahead and do it now. So if it's a $100,000 house and we're making a $100,000 offer, you write $100,000 in there, and it will automatically fill it in the spot above. Earnest money. Who's going to hold the earnest money, right? If you're the selling for the buyer, we like to hold it, so we're going to put Zellerman's going to hold it, and we're going to make the earnest money is usually between 1 to 2% of the purchase price, so in this case it'll be for $1,000. If earnest money is less than $1,000, it's not real earnest money. I mean, if earnest money is less than 1%, payable to Zellerman. Okay, it'll be in the form of check. And if they don't have it right now, you're going to put the buyer has not remitted earnest money, and we'll do so, let's say, within 2 days within contract acceptance date. When you want to close, okay? Closing shall take place on, and let's say it's July, so we're going to do it on August 3rd, 2014. Make sure, have a calendar in front of you, make sure that's an actual business day, and it's good for everyone. Actually, we'll close it at Neal & Robinson, the attorney we usually use. But again, this is all up for whoever wants to choose the closing attorney. It is typical that the buyer will choose the closing attorney, with the exception of a foreclosed or corporate-owned home. Sometimes they already have paperwork with a certain attorney. And this is in Atlanta, Georgia. And this is asking for their office address. If you don't have the actual address, you can put TBD, to be determined. All right. But the buyer shall have the rights to select different closing attorney, and you want the buyer to be able to take possession of the house at closing. If the seller wants to remain in the house a day or two after closing, then you would select this and put 2 days after closing at, say, 5 o'clock. If they are staying after closing, you also need to do a temporary occupancy agreement so that the seller is not liable in case the buyer gets hurt when they're staying in the home. That the buyer is not liable for the seller when they stay in the home after they actually transfer a title. Closing cost. What's typical? There is no typical answer for closing cost. Obviously, we'd like to get as much of the closing costs as we can for our buyers covered. So we don't use percentage because that's not a figure. We're going to say closing costs usually are about 2 to 3% of the purchase price. So in this instance, we're going to ask for $2,500 from the seller to go towards the buyer's closing costs. Now this is an important area. Contingencies. The buyer has to have the right to terminate the contract. This is for inspections, if they change their mind, whatever happens during this general right to terminate period. This means the buyer can get out of the contract without losing earnest money. Typically, I put 7 days here. If they need to extend it, I put up to 10. Anything outside of those 2 dates is kind of out of the norm. Appraisal contingency. For contracts closing in 30 days, this should usually be done in the first 20. Probably in 15, but let's go ahead and put 20 here. Finance contingency, you want this to last as long as possible. That being said, I'm going to request 25 days for the financing contingency. This particular buyer is getting a first mortgage. They will be putting down 20%, so they are getting a loan of 80% over 30 years with an interest rate, and it's a fixed rate, not to exceed 4.25%. This is important because it goes over 4.25%. Even up to that 25th day, they can get out of the contract and have all earnest money returned. Okay. This is saying down here, you want to make sure that the seller shall be responsible for having all utilities on during the home inspection. The only time a buyer would be responsible is perhaps if it's a foreclosure house and it's vacant. The bank might not want to have anything to do with turning on the utilities because no telling if pipes are missing or what's going on with the house. They won't want the liability, so if the buyer wants to inspect that, he may have to turn on the utilities and sign a special disclosure. Any type of special relationship here would have to be disclosed. If it is your mother, father, brother, sister, cousin, aunt, uncle, or if there's a business partner, go ahead and disclose it. If there's not, then put NA. This is saying that we are representing the buyer. This is saying that the seller's brokerage is representing the seller. Down here, this is for designated agency. This is for example, if there were 2 Zellerman agents involved, one for the buyer, one for the seller, since they're on the same brokerage, it would actually be a designated agency. All right. And as you can see, there's lots of legal lingo in here. It is written to protect both parties and the brokerages. But there's not that much to fill out, and that's a good thing, so you can't really mess it up that much. Here's where we attached addendums and exhibits. On this particular one, we're not going to attach, but you can see these are some of these on here. We would attach the lead-based disclosure of the house was before 1978. Special stipulations. What do you add in here? Well, what kind of stipulations are standard? Perhaps our buyer wants a home warranty, so I'd write 1. Seller to provide a 1-year American Home Shield home warranty at a cost not to exceed $500 to the seller at the time of closing. Okay? You might also want to ask for window treatment, right? Seller to leave all window treatments and hardware. Believe it or not, people sometimes take the curtain rods, etc. So you want to make sure you put both of those things down at no additional cost to buyer. And you can add extra stipulations, maybe for a survey, if there was some type of refrigerator, for instance, if you want that to stay at the washer and dryer. This is where you list it. If you have any questions on the special steps, ask your broker. We'll be glad to help you out with that. And then the last part is the offer is open till acceptance. I usually put 24 hours. So it is around 4 o'clock. So let's say I want to know 4 o'clock p.m. on July 4th. Now, on July 4th, that is a holiday for most people. So I will just tell you that you might want to say until July 5th or 6th because they may be busy and can't get back to you. So always keep the dates in mind you request. Fill out all this information. A very, very important thing is that the email address of all parties is accurate and is in here, because this is where you can send legal notices to, right? joe@email.com. You want everyone's email, because if we have to send a legal notice of termination, we can only send it to the email address listed or the actual physical address listed in the contract, okay? And we don't want to have to send out and have the cost of sending certified mail every time we officially change something to the contract. So it is crucial you have an email address for both buyer, seller, buyer's agents, and listing agent. There are very few people anymore that do not have email addresses, which sometimes there is the case though. But if they do have one, you need it in here. And that's it, guys. That is basically the purchase and sale agreement. We have filled one out for a $100,000 house between Joe Buyer and Sally Seller. And it's in Fulton County, 123 Maple Street. And we have done it in around 12 minutes. There's not that much to it. But you need to keep in mind that small things can have large ramifications. We will continue on to the next document. Now, thank you.